So the conference today, we have some great speakers. It's good to know it's certified. There's certification. That means we'll take a screenshot of all the people who are in each talk, and if you've actually stick it out until the end, there's evidence that we'll send you via email of your professionalization, which I know some companies and organizations really value. Also, I already gave you the spoiler on that one. There's goodie bags and prizes that Peter has made happen, which is why I'll ask Peter to also um, introduce them.
So very, very grateful to all of these people and companies who have supported us with this. So thank you. Back to you, Anka.
Well, actually, it's back to me, but only so I can say Chris Etchells is now going to introduce the conference.
Thank you very much, Anka. Thank you very much, Peter. So if you've just joined us in the last couple of minutes, welcome everyone. Obviously, thank you for joining us today. Thank you in particular to everyone who submitted presentations for the conference. Every single proposal was worthy of inclusion, and we had to make difficult decisions about what to include in the time available. So I'm sorry if your presentation was not included today, and if not, I hope we'll have an opportunity to showcase it in the future. So just before we actually begin, I'd like to say a few words about the title of the conference, which of course is Teaching for a Better Future. And we chose this name carefully and with purpose. Green Action ELT really started in 2019 when I saw someone at an English UK conference holding a book that I was also reading called The Uninhabitable Earth by an author called David Wallace Wells. And the book describes the likely impact on the Earth of a range of temperature increases caused by CO2 emissions. And it's a very serious and shocking book, and it describes sea level rises, extreme weather, wildfires, drought, geopolitical conflict, and so on. Anyway, out of that chance meeting came a working party called UK ELT and the Environment. And we produced a paper of the same name, which you can still find online. And I'll pop the URL into chat in a couple of minutes if you want. The paper argues how and why our profession should respond to the climate and ecological crisis. And it formed the basis for ELT Footprint UK, which we later renamed Green Action ELT to avoid confusion with ELT Footprint based in Spain. So here we are today, 2025. Back in 2019, I think many of us believed that there was still time to stop the worst effects of climate change. We thought we could help people change by telling a new story, really, about a future where there is clean air, clean water, clean energy, clean transport, a regenerative economy, better ways of living, nature restored, and so on. And we believed English teachers could help create and share this vision of a better future. So that vision, of course, is still worth striving for. But in 2025, which is really just a few years later, the situation feels somewhat, well, even more serious. Instead of reducing pollution, CO2 emissions have actually increased. Oil and gas companies are still expanding. Big banks are still funding harmful projects. Many governments are stepping back from their earlier climate promises. Global temperatures are likely to rise above the so-called safe level of 1.5 degrees centigrade. And wars, as we know, environmental disasters and migration from parts of the world which are already becoming uninhabitable are causing political instability. And as we've seen very recently, rich countries are closing their borders and ignoring the sufferings of others. So we have to ask ourselves now, can we really keep talking about teaching for a better future? And I asked this question on social media recently. My question was inspired by an article called Admitting Failure by Rupert Reed. And you can find it in the blog section of the Green Action ELT website. And again, I'll post the link just after I finish speaking here. But the article says that we need to accept that we have failed. Holding on to an unrealistic dream of a better future is exhausting when the reality of our predicament constantly intrudes on our optimism, and it can cause feelings of hopelessness and despair. But if we admit that we're in trouble, the article argues, we may release new energy, which will then help us keep going, shaping a better future. And when I say a better future in this context, I don't mean one that is objectively better. It honestly is probably too late for that, but better is a relative term. So it can mean creating a future that is less bad than the one we are currently heading towards. Every small rise in temperature caused by the release of CO2 means more human suffering and death. And so every fraction of a degree is still worth fighting for, absolutely worth fighting for. As teachers, obviously, we need to be careful how we talk about this with our students. We don't want to frighten or overwhelm them. We want to help them understand what's happening in a sensitive and hopeful way. And that's part of our job as educators. And I know we'll learn more about how to do that today from our various presenters. But all the same, it's hard not to feel worried about the future, especially for young people, for our students and our families. So how can we be honest about the climate crisis and at the same time still feel hopeful? Well, I think that becomes easier when you realize that hope is not so much an idea, but an emotion. And hope is an emotion that comes from action. In my experience, when you start doing things in response to the climate crisis, whether that's in your local community or your school or your classroom, hope builds naturally from the feeling of being involved and from the energy and friendship and commitment of others around you. So I'm just going to end by quoting a teacher in Northern Ireland who may have joined us by now, Stephen Farron, who replied to my question about whether we can still talk about teaching for a better future. And he said this, he said, as educators, what can we do? I can only answer for me. I make advocacy for a better world the core of everything I put out into the world. Will I spark big change? No, I'm not that egotistical. Will I send out small ripples? Every day. You can count on that. Will these ripples make a difference? I don't know. That's beyond my control. All I know is that ripples sometimes cause other ripples, and these ripples create more. And will it be enough? Again, I can't answer that other than to say something is more than nothing. So I just wanted to say thank you, Stephen, for those profound thoughts. And just sort of paraphrasing, in other words, we each of us have significant influence, but little or no control. So we don't know how things are going to go. We don't know where things are going to end up, but let's do what we can. And again, I want to thank each of you for being here today, because by joining this event, you're already taking action and helping to shape a better future. So let's create ripples today and hope that together we can all make a difference. Thank you.